to get into some Texas football conversation. I want to talk about just some of the things that I saw in the spring game from my notes. I'll get into a couple of the conceptual signatures that I saw, but I do think there are clues based on what we saw in the spring game as to what the Texas offense may look like, or and I'll do defense actually tomorrow because I'm gonna go back and rewatch the defense and go try to pick up on some patterns and see if there's any change. I want to see if there's a Johnny Nansen influence, him coming as the co-DC from Arizona. I think there will be. I think I did notice it, but I want to make sure I can chart it and document it. But one thing I do think is going to return. Now, we didn't see a lot of Quinn Ewers. He only played 2 series, and then it was mostly Arch Manning, mostly Trey Owens, Cole Lord. And I do think I think you can actually extrapolate something from that. You can gain something from that because it's the offense that you saw in the spring game. Of course, it was vanilla, but it was not necessarily specific to Quinn Ewers, which is most of the sample size that we have about the Sark offense, right? He's been a 3-year starter, so that makes sense. And Sark is even on the record saying he tailors his offense specifically to the not only the skill sets of the quarterbacks, their strengths and weaknesses, but whatever they like, their preferences. He said, I only run plays they like, only run plays they know, run plays they like. I'm not going to do run plays they don't know and run plays they're not comfortable with. And I assume maybe that's still the case in the spring game. Remember, Sark wasn't calling the plays in the spring game either. That was Kyle Flood was calling plays in the spring game. So they divided up those duties. I believe AJ Milwee might have been calling plays in the spring game. So they divided up those duties. Sark was just kind of watching the whole thing. But it was Sark's offense. So some of the things that I thought were interesting, I do think your deep ball is definitely coming back. I mean, I saw in that game, I believe I charted 8 deep passes, and those are not the ones that were called dead. There were a few deep passes that were called dead because Sark thought it was going to be a sack or something like that. So even though they threw it deep, they called it back. These are only the ones that were actually in play. And Texas was 3 of 8 on those deep passes. You had a 75-yard touchdown, 75-yard touchdown, 56-yard touchdown. So I do think Sark's on the record for saying he wants the deep ball to come back. He has curtailed it because of the inefficiency of one Quinn Ewers throwing the deep ball. But I will admit, and I didn't even realize this either, LA Chin threw out some really interesting stats about Quinn Ewers and the deep ball. Quinn Ewers actually in the last 7 games as a starter, his deep ball has gotten a lot better. It was, I think, a weakness for him and I still think it's not a natural strength. But in his last 7 starts, his QBR on deep balls is 92. Prior to that, it was 23. His completion percentage is up to 43% in the last 7 starts on passes 20 yards or more through the air. It was 24%, 14.8 yards per attempt as opposed to 7.9. 25% off target rate in the last 7 starts throwing the deep ball as opposed to 44%. So it wasn't him, of course, because Quinn didn't play that much, but just watching Trey Owens, just watching Arch out there, I mean, they were letting it loose. Both of those guys, I think, actually are better natural deep ball throwers than Quinn Ewers. They don't have better arms necessarily than Quinn, but I do think they have some guys have a better natural deep ball, and I think they have better natural deep balls. And that was on display. It was pretty obvious, but that's going to come back in Sark's offense, and I think it's going to come back this year because he's also got to prove, Patrick, to the scouts that Quinn can throw the deep ball. That's considered a flaw in his game, and Sark wants to shatter that narrative too, for Quinn's sake.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that he's realized with Quinn, that there's a certain point where he kind of runs into a wall of growing during the regular season. So you can kind of try and put new things into him, but then at a certain point, we've seen that wall hit for Quinn Ewers. And if you say, okay, let's table that to the offseason, we'll get into next season and we'll work on that. I'm sure it's been a point of emphasis for Quinn all offseason to work on that deep ball, not only when he's working with Sark, but when he's working with his own guys and trying to build his own game, because that is something that you need in the NFL. It's something that we've heard from a lot of NFL scouts. It's what we've heard from a lot of people around the NFL, is that deep ball accuracy is one of the hardest things in the NFL. And it's one of the key points they look at in a quarterback. And because there's a lot of guys who can make a lot of other throws, but there's very few guys that have deep ball accuracy along with all the interior game. So that's a piece that he needs to grow. If he wants to be the top quarterback taken in the draft, he'll still be taken and he'll still be a good quarterback in the NFL. But to be that top quarterback taken, if he can and evolve that deep ball, it'd be huge.
Well, it depends on sometimes the system that'll take you, right? If a
Yeah.
certain system, if they, and the Sark system actually is philosophically a system that relies on the deep ball. He has just not taken it out of the offense. He has been more judicious about when he calls it. Remember when he first got it, Sark would call that deep ball pass on first down, first and 10. He'd call it on, second and 10. There was no situation that really put parameters on his deep ball or restrictions on it. Really, Sark was pretty wild with it, and since I believe 50% of his deep balls used to be on first down. I think that has dropped off a little bit. And also, he has stopped throwing the deep ball because it would often put them behind the chains. Didn't inflict the psychological damage he thought it would, but it's coming back. Sark wants it back, and it's a pivotal part of the offense that's been missing, or at least it's been underwhelming the last 3 years in Sark's offense, and he wants to bring it back. So I think that's something you'll see just for Quinn and for the sake of the overall offense. Also, something I noticed a ton of, and this may just be Sark's favorite play. The play they ran the most in the spring game was probably in terms of passing plays, by the way. I didn't go back and look at the running plays. They have their favorite run plays they like to run: wide zone, inside zone, split wide zone, split inside zone, counter. I mean, they got their favorite run plays. We've talked about that. The tight end screen. I don't know if you guys noticed, they ran a lot of tight ends. They ran 4 tight end screens in that game. Sark likes the tight end screen, by the way. He ran a lot of it with JT Sanders. It is a really successful play. If you're looking at yards per play, it's probably top 5 of your regular kind of go-to plays in yards per play. I mean, last year you were over 12 yards per play running that tight end screen. And hell, in the spring game, you were 11 yards per play running that tight end screen. You ran it 4 times. You had 20-yarder out of it with Jordan Washington, which was really good. I think Amari Niblack had one that was like 14 yards, that tight end screen. They like it. The explosive play rate is around 33% for your tight end screens last season. So that's a play that Sark's, that it's a go-to for him. And you saw it a lot in the spring game. With this group of tight ends, I wonder which one of them he is going to use that play with, because Gunnar Helm got one. Amari Niblack got 2. I think Jordan Washington got 1 too. Be interesting to see who is in. And Juan Davis didn't, but I imagine Juan Davis can also run it. So that's one of Sark's favorite plays with his tight ends. Also, 2 big plays. Savion Red ran it once, and so did. This is the play that Jaden Blue scored on. They call it a Texas route. Which is essentially where the running back runs an angle route out of the backfield. So it's essentially the running back version of a slant coming out of the backfield. They ran it twice. They got 50 yards combined on those 2 plays. That Texas route. This is the route that Jaden Blue scored on. You look at that. I mean, they can run that a ton because it's usually a running back matched up on linebacker. And the angle that he takes, if Jaden Blue, he takes an angle like he's running the wheel route, and then cuts it back inside. And usually he loses that linebacker, because most linebackers, if you put them on their skates like that, you're going to run the wheel route, and you cut it back inside, it's going to be wide open. You're going to see that a lot this upcoming season. You seen it a little bit last year. You're going to see it a ton. It's going to be either the wheel, or he's going to be running that Texas route. Wheel or the Texas, and they're going to go back and forth on it. And I guarantee they're going to come up with a wheel stop at one point where he's going to run the wheel and then curl it up.
Yeah.
Like right there in the flat, potentially.
Yeah. I mean, and all those are the plays that, if you can consistently get linebackers to miss, and they have to devote a safety now to watch out when Jaden Blue's in the game, helps open up that deep ball. Because anything you can do to make a safety have to make more decisions, and where are they going to go? And then you slip a guy out the back end, and that opens up that deep ball. And we know that that's where we want to go eventually. It's where it's all building to that. That's a crescendo.
You're right about that, because the tight end screen will force you to do that. Yep. The Texas, the running back, the Texas route we're talking about. I agree with that 100%. Also, empty formation, something I noticed a lot of. You guys know I love empty formation. Empty formation is when you empty the backfield on the quarterbacks back there. You can run it from any personnel group, and you can run it. You can go empty to start out, or you can start out in regular 11 personnel, one back in the backfield, and you can motion to empty. Or you can reload, as they say, and Sark likes to do that too, where you start out in empty and then you motion a running back into the backfield, and they call that reloading the backfield. They did a lot of empty. I believe I counted 6 plays of empty in the in the spring game, and 66% completion percentage, damn near 67. You're at 9.5 yards per attempt. You did have 2 explosive plays out of that empty formation. So I think they want to run more of it. What I have charted with Quinn is it's weird. Quinn's great, but he's in out of empty formation. He almost panics and he doesn't feel really well. Doesn't get the ball out really well. Holds on to the ball too often in empty formation. And what I've tracked, even going back to Sam Ellinger's time, empty formation, usually the sack rates will drop out of empty. Why? Because you're getting rid of the ball so quickly. You got 5 receivers out there in routes. You're getting rid of the ball really quickly. Even if they want to blitz it cleans up your picture. The defense can't disguise. They have to get to their alignment and assignment. And with Quinn, he takes a lot of sacks in empty. Even the last 3 games of the season, or say take 3 out of the last 4 games of the season, he took 3 sacks in empty formation, which is really high. Like I said, sack rates usually drop out of empty formation. And I've noticed that about Quinn. Now, he's better at it. Even in the Sugar Bowl against Washington, he had 80% completion percentage out of empty formation. Matter of fact, the last 2 games against Washington, it is definitely something conceptually that just works, matches up well against Washington's defense. Quinn in empty formation, 87% completion percentage out of empty formation versus Washington last 2 games he played them. He and third. How about this? If you go look at the explosive play rate, you're looking at damn near 30% explosive play rate out of empty formation. 5 explosive plays in the last 2 games you played against them when you run empty formation. So it definitely works against Washington. They should have run more of it last year. They should have run more of it the year prior in the Alamo Bowl when they played Washington. But I digress. He's getting better at it. Arch seems to be naturally good at it because Arch is efficient. He's efficient in the pocket with his movements. He's efficient getting the ball out on time. He's efficient with his mechanics, and he's a lot more efficient. He's a Manning than Quinn is, and I think that'll help him in empty formation be able to get the ball out on time and, of course, avoid sacks and avoid pressure, which Quinn doesn't do. So Sark wants to use more of it. I think, once again, he has tailored the offense to what Quinn's good at. Quinn's getting better at it. Arch is naturally good at it. I think Trey Owens might be better at it just because they just, in that situation, they feel the pressure a little bit better than Quinn does. And that's just a spring game, but that's another thing I think Sark wants to run more of, and you could see more of it, especially with guys like Jaden Blue, getting him matched up on linebackers in empty formation. You could see more Amari Niblack, basically a receiver as a tight end, getting him matched up. You could see more of it if Quinn gets better at it, which I think he is based on what I've tracked. All right, we